you are in a particular activity and that activity happen to be your passion and the expression of your gift and your talent in the form of a work environment, you experience flow.
How do IFA people, the IFA practitioners, approach suicide?
So IFA has a system of finding purpose and meaning of a child. Was even conceived. This suggests a deep personal relationship and prior selection by Olodumare in heaven before we were born in our mother's womb. Ladies and gentlemen, if the three Abrahamic religions and our indigenous IFA theology believes in predestination, which happen to be the starting point of IFA's approach to depression, we have to look at the concept of predestination. In this modern time, we must look at the therapeutic intervention of the philosophy of predestination. Thank you.
I really appreciate this lecture. This is a very beautiful lecture today.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. All right. For those of you that are listening to us, you would have noticed that the question of IFA theology, we have already treated it before in this podcast. In fact, it remained one of the most viewed on the Obehi Podcast, which is to say that the people within our demography, they are interested in this conversation. They want to learn more about it. First, I reached out to Professor Oluwafemi, and I told him this question needs to be more explored. Of course, this is not the end of it today, even though we are looking at depression, looking at how we can use our indigenous knowledge system, looking at IFA theology, or looking at IFA approach to life as a way of understanding depression and overcoming it. And of course, you also heard what Professor Oluwafemi was referring to when he was making mention of data there. Those data that they shared there was actually pretty scary. Looking at how much depression is on a high increase among our demography, Africans and among Africans in the diaspora. So it is not something that we just need to brush aside. It's something that we really need to pay attention to. The question is, how do we resolve this problem? So it is an important conversation. So I really want to thank you again, Professor Oluwafemi, for the time that you spend here educating us, because we really appreciate it. We really do. Now, the first question I will have for you is about fulfillment. For somebody that is operating within IFA theology or within the IFA framework of life, what does fulfillment look like?
Yeah. Now, I mean, thank you. So the question of fulfillment, which you permit me to answer that question within the framework of modern psychology, which is, I'm going to use the framework of positive psychology. Now, in positive psychology, there's what we call flow. Okay, that flow simply says that when you are in a particular activity and that activity happen to be your passion and the expression of your gift and your talent in the form of a work environment, you experience flow. You just flow. And when you are flowing, you are happy, you are increasing your joy, you don't get tired, and you are happy. That kind of flow, that happiness is an element of fulfillment. That is, that person is fulfilling their gift and talent in a career environment.
All right. Thank you so much for that. That is also critically important. Now, there is something I am sort of I'm wondering about. In the course of your explanation, you made mention of suicide. Of course, you talk about it a number of occasions. And because we are also looking at the indigenous way of approaching this problem that is also huge among us, I'm sort of wondering, how do IFA people, the IFA practitioners, approach suicide? How much prevalent is suicide among IFA practitioners? Or what is known about the literature of suicide among the IFA practitioners?
Yes. So we're going to start from the pre-colonial era. I've said it before, in the pre-colonial era, in the Yoruba IFA cosmology, there's a tradition that when a child is born on the 8th day, which is also a tradition established in Judaism, In Judaism, I give an example. When Jesus was born, he was taken to the temple. On the 8th day, on the 7th day. So you now see us that in Yoruba culture, a child is taken to the priest on the 8th day to find out his destiny. That is, what has this child come to do? Yeah. So when they find out, and then Ifa divination will reveal the purpose of that child, that why Eledumare sent that child to this world. And that is the concept of purpose. So Ifa has a system of finding purpose and meaning of a child. But it is very sad that the invasion of our critical consciousness through the imperialist religion, both Christianity and Islam, I'm talking of the colonized religion of Islam and Christianity, we lost that. So therefore, in the Ifa theology, people don't commit suicide because they have understanding that every soul, every child is born with a purpose and a destiny. Therefore, suicide is not in that literature. They don't think about suicide because you are here, born, sent by Olodumare to fulfill destiny and assignment. Therefore, your life has meaning and is valuable.
All right.
Very important.
Thank you for that. In the other conversation that we had before, where we talked about suicide, I was making mention of what I knew about the question, what I knew about suicide from my understanding of Esan tradition, Esan way of life, Esan belief system, Esan worldview. And for those of you that are maybe do not know what is Esan, Esan is part of the present Edo State, Nigeria, southern Nigeria. It's about 1.5 million people. One of the most predominant ethnic group in Edo State. So it's relatively a very small ethnic group. That is where I was born. That is where I grew up. Those are my people. So in that culture that I'm coming from, okay, it's true that we don't have a word for suicide, which is hua, meaning that in fact, the way it even sound, it could threaten you, hua, as if you just go and kill yourself. But it is strange. It's something that is not common at all in our culture, that somebody get to the point of committing suicide. So because we are looking at Ifa theology or Ifa practitioner, Ifa practices to understand this concept of depression and also suicide, because I think suicide will come after depression, not the other way around. So now I'm wondering, within the let's even take it away from, let's move beyond Ifa. Let's look at the entire Yoruba cosmology.
Yes.
What should we know about suicide? What is suicide? How much is it prevalent among the Yoruba people? Pre-colonial, of course. I'm not talking of today. I'm talking of pre-colonial. How much is it prevalent among the people?
Yeah. I mean, thank you for introducing that timeline. The pre-colonial era, people don't take their life in Yoruba culture. If you do that, they believe that someone has conjured a medium and sent the spirit of death to you as an attack. It is not something that is common and privileged in the pre-colonial.